Hello, so glad you are here. Today's story is about Alisa Brooks, a junior analyst who was forced into an uncomfortable position at work to help save her job and the company. After the company failed management, my question to you, would you fight to save your company or just move on and find another job? Let us know what you think. Leave a comment below and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. Alisa Brooks sat hunched over the dining table, her laptop open, papers scattered everywhere, tapping her pen anxiously against the edge of her laptop. The steady click, click, click filled the quiet house. She stared at the slides on her screen, the numbers blurring together, but her hand refused to stop moving. The numbers on the screen made sense, barely, but the weight pressing down on her chest refused to lift. Across the hall, Ruth Brooks heard the tapping. She paused at the doorway, taking in the scene. Her daughter looking exhausted, stressed, clinging to focus by a thread. Ruth's patience, however, was thin. "Alisa," she said, her voice sharp, "if you don't stop that damn tapping, I'm tossing you and that laptop onto the front lawn." Alisa blinked, startled, and the pen fell from her hand. She ran a hand through her hair. "Sorry, Mom," she said, voice tight. I have to be ready. Tomorrow's the big presentation. The board wants answers." Ruth crossed her arms, unmoved. "Sweetheart, no one expects you and the team to clean up 10 years of corruption in a few weeks. It's impossible." Alisa shook her head, frustration leaking through. "No, but they expect it anyway." And Ruth knew she was right. Evans Bakersfield Industries had been a wreck for years. Shady accounting, ghost contracts, funds leaking out faster than they came in. When the old CEO finally got dragged out in cuffs, the board scrambled to save what was left. They brought in Evans Bakersfield, younger, untainted by the company's past, maybe a little crazy, and tasked him with turning around a sinking ship. His first move had been recruiting Matthew Mathis, a stone-cold CFO with a reputation for ripping companies back into shape. Alisa wasn't supposed to be part of the fix. She had been a mid-level manager, quietly competent. But when the scandals broke, most of the upper ranks bailed, and Alisa found herself shoved to the front lines. One of the few people left who knew how the company actually worked. Alisa knew she couldn't fix everything. But tomorrow, when she walked into that boardroom, she had to convince them there was still something left worth saving. Because if she didn't, it was all going to burn. Matthew Mathis pored over the latest forensic audits files, preparing his own reports. Every time they uncovered one hole, 3 more opened. And somewhere across town, Evans Bakersfield, named after his grandfather, the founder of the company, the newly appointed CEO, the man who had been crazy enough to say yes to the job when the company was drowning, sat in his darkened office alone, staring at the city lights, wondering if tomorrow would be the day. The board decided to pull the plug. His phone buzzed with a message from Matthew. "We're ready as we'll ever be. See you at 7. Tomorrow, they'd walk into that boardroom together. Ready or not. The boardroom felt like a courtroom. Everyone here was waiting for a public execution. Alisa Brooks sat stiffly at the conference table, laptop open, palms sweating under the table. The board members, all 9 of them, looked like sharks circling a half-dead body. Most hadn't even bothered to hide their disgust. Some of them wanted Evans Bakersfield's turnaround to fail. It would give them cover to slice the company apart and sell it off for scrap. Evans leaned back in his chair, casual, confident, or pretending to be. His tie was loose, his jacket still on. He looked like a man who either didn't care if he won or was sure he already had. Matthew Mathis sat to his left, calm as stone. His expression was pure disdain. He was holding a stack of reports like a weapon, waiting for the signal. The chairman, an old-school bruiser named Hargrove, rapped his knuckles against the table. "Clock's ticking, people. We didn't come here for fairy tales." Alisa stood up. No small talk, no warm-up. She clicked the laptop and the first slide hit the giant screen, a blood-red chart showing the company's losses over the last decade. No mercy, no polish. "The truth is ugly," she said, voice flat. "But it's the truth, and if you want to survive, you need to hear it." The room went still. Matthew handed out the packets. Every board member flipping pages seemed just how deep the rot went. Embezzlement, kickbacks, shell companies. It wasn't just a mess, it was an empire of lies built over a decade. Evans spoke then, low and cutting. We inherited a garbage fire, he said, but we also inherited the matches. You want this place cleaned up? Let us finish what we started. You want to slow walk it? Fine. Just don't act surprised when this company's carcass is picked clean by your competitors. Silence. A few of the board members shifted uncomfortably. One or two looked angry. But not at Evans, at the mess they had allowed for so long. Alisa kept her shoulders back, kept her breathing steady. Tomorrow wasn't promised, neither was victory. But today they were still standing. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. 4 more weeks, a stay of execution. The board filed out without ceremony, some still grumbling under their breath. Evans didn't celebrate. He just nodded once, like he expected it all along, and left to deal with the press. Matthew Mathis didn't even look up from his phone. He just sent Alisa a message. My office, now. Alisa grabbed her laptop and went. Matthew's office was bare. No family photos, no personal touches, just a desk, a whiteboard full of scrawled numbers, and a stack of contracts waiting for signatures. He didn't waste time. We got 4 weeks, he said, closing the door behind her. That's nothing. We're still buried. I need something better than what we pitched today. Alisa didn't sit. She paced, thinking fast. We need more hands, she said. The seasonal workers, they know the systems, they know the mess. Bring them in. Full time, just for the month. Matthew frowned. Seasonals are part-timers. Most of them have other jobs. Then we hire temps to cover their regular gigs, Alisa said. Shift them off frontline work and into cleanup, audits, inventory, records matching. Every extra body focused on the core problems. Matthew leaned back, considering it. It was aggressive, messy, but maybe fast enough. You really think they'll go for it? He asked. If the choice is helping us or losing their jobs completely when this place tanks, Alisa said, they'll go for it. Matthew tapped his pen against the desk, thinking. Then he nodded. Sharp. Decisive. Fine, draft it, budget it. I want a full rollout plan on my desk by morning. Alisa nodded once, already moving. 4 weeks wasn't long, but if they played it right, it would be enough. Evans Bakersfield was in his corner office, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, sipping bad coffee and staring at a wall of whiteboards packed with problems no one had solved yet. When Alisa knocked once and walked in, he didn't look up. You better have good news. I have a plan, Alisa said, straight to the point. That got his attention. Evans turned, gave her a look that said this better be worth it. We pull the seasonal workers off their usual roles and into the recovery work, Alisa said, stepping closer to the desk. They know the systems. They know where the bodies are buried. We replace their frontline jobs with temp workers, cheap, fast training. That frees up our best people to dig us out of the real mess. Evans arched an eyebrow. Temps aren't miracle workers. They don't have to be, Alisa said. They just have to show up, clock in, and hold the line. Meanwhile, the seasonals do the heavy lifting. Audits, reconciliations, missing files, inventory verifications. All of it. Evans didn't answer immediately. He sat back, thinking. Alisa felt the seconds stretch long between them. You can move that many people around without the whole operation collapsing? He asked finally. I can, Alisa said firm. But I need full authority to pull it off. No delays, no micromanaging. A small grin tugged at the corner of Evans's mouth. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of grin you gave someone who surprised you in a good way. Fine, he said. You have point on this. Matthew's backing you up. Don't make me regret it. I won't, Alisa said. She didn't wait to be dismissed. She just turned and walked out, her mind already racing through the next steps. For the first time since this nightmare started, it didn't feel like she was just surviving. It felt like she was leading with hope. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and old takeout. 30 seasonal workers crammed into the space, half of them tired, the other half suspicious. They knew something was coming. Rumors traveled faster than memos in this building. Alisa stood at the front, a clipboard in her hand. She didn't hide behind it. She made eye contact, steady and sharp. Listen up, she said, cutting through the low hum of chatter. I'm not going to lie to you. The company's on a clock. We have 4 weeks to turn this around or this place is done. You, me, all of it. Some heads turned, a few crossed their arms. One guy in the back, Jason, longtime forklift driver, muttered under his breath. Alisa pushed forward. We need people who know the guts of this company, and that's you. We're pulling you off your usual gigs. You're being reassigned to high-priority work. Audits, inventory, records. You'll be cleaning up the mess that's threatening all our jobs." Murmurs broke out immediately, some anxious, some angry. "Who's covering our shifts?" someone asked, voice sharp. "Temps," Alisa said, clear and fast. "We'll bring in a temp pool to handle the frontline work. Your focus will be on saving this company, not keeping the loading docks running." Jason stood up, arms crossed. "And if we say no?" Alisa didn't flinch. "Then you'll still be on the floor," she said, "until the board pulls the plug. And when that happens, you'll have nothing. No severance, no warning, just a shutdown notice." Silence. Heavy, resentful silence. "But if you help us," Alisa added, voice steady, "you're part of the solution. You get a say in what happens next." Someone coughed. Another shifted in their seat. Alisa met Jason's stare head-on until he finally shrugged and sat back down. No one else moved to argue. She nodded once. "Good," she said. "We start tomorrow. Shift schedules will be posted tonight. If you have questions, see me. Otherwise, get ready to work." As she left the room, she caught a few nods from the crowd. Small, reluctant, but real. It wasn't trust yet, but it was a start. 2 days later, everything blew up. Matthew into Alisa's office without knocking, a printout in his hand and his face grim. "We've got a problem," he said, dropping the paper on her desk. Alisa scanned it fast. A formal offer from Grayson Consolidated, a rival company. They wanted to buy Evans Bakersfield Industries outright, and they weren't bluffing. It was a real offer, real money, and it was damn tempting. Before Alisa could even speak, Matthew hit her with the next punch. "The board's moving the deadline up. 3 weeks, full turnaround, or they sell to Grayson." Alisa leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. "They can't do that. They can and they did," Matthew snapped. "Evans is in with the board right now trying to hold them off, but it's happening." Alisa pressed her fingers against her temples, thinking fast. 3 weeks. That wasn't a timeline. It was a death sentence. Unless they moved even faster. "We have to accelerate everything," she said. "Double the audit teams, pull managers out of their offices and onto the floor, cancel non-essential ops, full red alert." Matthew nodded. No argument. No hesitation. Alisa grabbed her laptop, already moving. 3 weeks. The clock was ticking louder now, and if they didn't outrun it, everything they were fighting for would belong to someone else. Evans' office had been transformed into a war room. Papers, reports, spreadsheets, and charts covered every surface. A giant clock had been dragged onto the conference table, set to count down the new 3-week deadline in bold red numbers. No one had to say it out loud. They were under siege. When Alisa and Matthew walked in, Evans didn't waste a second. "Shut the door," he said. Matthew kicked it closed without slowing down. Alisa dropped into a chair, laptop already open, heart pounding. Evans stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, tie gone, eyes sharp. "Grayson wants to gut us," he said flatly. "Strip the assets, rebrand what's left, fire half the workforce. You know it. I know it." He jabbed a finger at the clock. "We've got 21 days to show the board we're worth saving. That's it. No extensions, no second chances." Matthew threw down a stack of revised audits. "We're collapsing the cleanup timeline, hiring more temps, pulling in seasonal workers for high-priority recovery." Alisa followed up immediately. "Every department head's being dragged into this. No passengers. If you're breathing, you're working." Evans nodded, pacing. "Good. Because here's the reality. This isn't just about fixing the books anymore. It's about proving this company's alive, that it can fight back. We need clean numbers, airtight records, visible movement. Every day, every hour." He stopped, pinning them both with a hard look. "I need you two leading the charge. No committees, no vote-taking. You see a problem, you fix it. You need resources, you take them. Full executive authority for the next 21 days. Matthew raised an eyebrow. "That's going to ruffle feathers." "Good," Evans said. "We don't need feathers. We need results." Alisa felt the weight of it land squarely on her shoulders. Heavy, terrifying. And yet, somewhere deep down, it sparked something else too. Determination. "Where do you want us to start?" she asked. Evans gave a grim smile. "Everywhere. It started at 7 a.m. sharp." Alisa and Matthew didn't waste time with emails or memos. They hit the floor themselves, that moving from department to department like a shockwave. First stop, operations. Alisa stood in the middle of the ops bullpen, clipboard in hand, her voice cutting through the morning haze. "Listen up. New orders. Every non-critical task is suspended. You are now reassigned to one of 3 teams: audit, inventory, records. If you don't know which one, ask your manager. And if they don't know, ask me. You move now. No arguing. Some employees blinked at her, slow to process. Others hustled immediately. Matthew was right behind her, pulling department heads into quick huddles, issuing orders like a general in battle. Team leaders meet every night at 6 for debriefs, he barked. I want problems flagged early, not buried. By 9 a.m., HR had posted new shift schedules. Temps flooded into the building, wearing neon badges so no one mistook them for regulars. They filled the basic roles: shipping, stocking, basic clerical work, freeing the experienced workers to attack the backlog. By noon, the old rules were dead. Seniority didn't matter. Titles didn't matter. If you couldn't work, you got out of the way. Alisa barely stopped to breathe. She bounced between war room meetings and warehouse floor walkthroughs, solving bottlenecks on the fly. Every hour mattered now. At 2 p.m., she caught Matthew in the hallway, both of them gulping bad coffee. We're still losing time, he said, scanning a fresh report. Inventory numbers are a mess. Some of the files are so old they're still on paper. Alisa wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, thinking. Fine, she said. We run double shifts, night crews, 24-hour cycle. We don't sleep until this is clean. Matthew gave a tired but impressed grunt. You were a manager 2 months ago, he said. Now you're running a corporate triage. Alisa just smiled grimly. No one else is going to save us. The first sign of trouble hit that night. Alisa was in the war room, cross-checking audit updates, when Matthew stormed in, phone in hand, looking like he wanted to throw it across the room. We've got a breach, he said, slamming the door behind him. Some of the temp contracts got leaked, to Grayson. They know exactly where we're vulnerable. Alisa's stomach dropped. How? Matthew shook his head. Internal leak, high level, someone with board access. Before Alisa could respond, Evans pushed through the door, jacket slung over his shoulder, face tight with anger. I just got off the phone with the chairman, Evans said. Grayson's upped their offer again. They're circling like vultures because someone in this company is feeding them our playbook. He threw his jacket onto a chair and stood at the head of the table, the big clock ticking down behind him. He said, voice low and sharp, I'm not playing defense anymore. Alisa and Matthew watched as Evans grabbed a legal pad and started writing names, the board members, one after another. Starting tomorrow, Evans said, we investigate every board member, every deal, every vote, every call. If they've got dirty ties to Grayson, we find it, we document it, we expose it. And then what? Matthew asked. Evans looked up, eyes cold. Then we rip them out, one by one. Silence filled the room. It wasn't just about saving the company anymore. It was war. And Evans was done playing nice. He pointed at Alisa. You're in charge of internal intel, discreet. No official channels. I want private profiles on every board member by the end of the week. If they've got skeletons, you find them. He turned to Matthew. You and I are going to start tightening financial oversight. Hard. No side deals, no backdoors. Matthew gave a grim nod. Alisa felt the weight of the assignment settle on her shoulders, but she didn't flinch. She just opened a fresh document, titled it Board Risk Assessment, and started typing. The clock behind them ticked on. 20 days left. And now the real enemy wasn't just outside the company, it was inside the walls. Alisa knew she couldn't afford mistakes. One wrong move and the leak would bury them before they even had a chance to fight back. So she didn't go outside the system. She went deeper inside it. She called in Inter, the company's internal risk and security division. A small team, mostly ignored under the old leadership, but sharp, quiet, loyal only to the company, not the board. The head of Inter, a woman named Shay Donovan, met her in the parking garage after hours. No emails, no call logs. You want background checks on your own board? Shay asked, stepping out of the shadows, arms crossed. I want the truth, Alisa said. Discreetly, fast. Shay smiled faintly. Then you came to the right place. Over the next 48 hours, Alisa and Inter worked a silent operation. No formal investigations, no paper trails. Instead, they used what the company already had. Travel records, expense reports, hotel stays, private flights billed to the company under consulting that didn't match any real business. Phone logs, corporate phones were company property. A simple metadata sweep showed patterns, which board members made late-night calls to Grayson-linked firms. Meeting schedules. Security badge records revealed who was meeting whom and when, including a few suspicious meetings off-site, away from official company business. Financial audits. Matthews' Titan systems flagged irregularities, donations, fake vendor payments, mysterious consulting fees linked to shell companies tied back to certain board members. Alisa didn't act on gut feeling. She built a case, file by file, record by record, piecing together a picture that was uglier than she expected. By the end of the second day, 3 names floated to the top: Douglas Klein, Sandra Lowry, Peter Vasquez. Each had ties to Grayson, each had something to gain from selling out the company. Alisa sat in the war room late that night, the files spread out in front of her. Shay stood nearby, arms crossed, watching her process it. "You sure you want to take this upstairs?" Shay asked. "Once this gets out, it's going to be a knife fight." Alisa didn't hesitate. "Yeah," she said. "It's time." She packed the evidence into a slim, unmarked folder, labeled it simply, "Board Compromise, Priority Action." Then she stood up, ready to take it to Evans. The clock was still ticking, but now at least, they knew where the rot was hiding. Evans didn't say a word when Alisa handed him the folder. He sat at the head of the war room table, flipping through the files with cold, deliberate precision. Each page he turned seemed to make him angrier, but not the kind of anger that exploded, the kind that sharpened into something lethal. When he finally closed the folder, he looked up at Alisa, eyes flat. "You're sure about this?" he asked, voice low. "Positive," Alisa said. "We triple-checked everything. They're dirty." Evans leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers once against the folder. "Good," he said, "because I'm not giving them a second chance." He stood up, grabbing the folder under one arm, and headed straight for his legal counsel's office. A man named Harris Doyle, a corporate lawyer with a reputation for making problems disappear quietly. Within hours, the machine was in motion. Legal notices were quietly drafted, outlining breach of fiduciary duty, conflict of interest, and preliminary grounds for immediate board expulsion. Private meetings were scheduled with each compromised board member, one-on-one, off-site, under the guise of urgent compliance discussions. Exit packages were prepared, minimal golden parachutes tied to silence agreements. Take the offer quietly or face public exposure and lawsuits. The next morning, Evans moved. He met first with Douglas Klein, catching him in a private lounge before a scheduled board session. Evans slid the evidence across the table without a smile. "You've got 2 choices," he said. "Resign quietly, or I call for a public vote of no confidence. Release this evidence to the SEC, and let the media turn you into shark bait. You'll lose your seat, your career, and your reputation." Klein blustered, threatened, postured. Evans just stared at him until he cracked. Klein signed the resignation papers 30 minutes later. Sandra Lowry went the same way, though she tried bargaining first. Evans didn't budge. No deals. Peter Vasquez lasted longer, a full 2-hour fight, but in the end, he folded too. By the end of the day, 3 seats on the board were empty. Official reason, personal reasons. Real reason, Evans Bakersfield had declared war on the rot inside his own company, and he wasn't losing. When Evans returned to the war room that night, he found Alisa and Matthew still working, faces lit by laptop screens and half-dead coffee cups. He tossed the signed resignation letters onto the table. 3 down, he said. "Now let's finish saving this damn company." Alisa caught Matthew's glance, something fierce and a little stunned passing between them. They were no longer just cleaning up a mess. They were taking control of the future. Grayson Consolidated made their move 2 days later. It was all over the news by noon. A hostile takeover bid splashed across every major financial network. Grayson moves to acquire Evans Bakersfield Industries in aggressive play for market share. They didn't even pretend to be subtle. They offered a cash buyout, big enough to tempt shareholders, big enough to scare everyone who didn't know the full story. Inside Evans Bakersfield HQ, panic rippled through the ranks. Managers whispered in hallways. Department heads started calling lawyers. Everyone assumed it was over. Everyone except Evans. He called an emergency meeting in the war room. Alisa, Matthew, Shay from Inter, and a handful of key department heads crammed around the table, tension thick in the air. Evans didn't look worried. He looked ready. He dropped a thick packet of signed agreements onto the table with a thud. "What Grayson doesn't know," Evans said, voice calm and sharp, "is that while they were bribing board members and leaking fake numbers, we were building an alliance." He flipped open the top page. "Over the past month, we locked in private strategic partnerships with 4 smaller companies: suppliers, manufacturers, and logistics firms. Quiet deals, no press, no SEC flags." He moved down the list: a regional distribution company that guaranteed priority shipping rates, a raw materials supplier agreeing to a long-term exclusive deal, a mid-sized tech firm ready to modernize Evans' ancient inventory systems for a fraction of the usual cost, a manufacturing plant network offering new production capacity at a discount. "These deals stabilize us," Evans said. "They cover our weak points. They lower our operating costs by 20% in the first year. Grayson thinks they're buying a dying brand. They don't realize we're already turning the corner." Alisa leaned forward, adrenaline rushing. "If we announce these alliances publicly," she started. Matthew finished her thought. "Grayson's offer looks like a bad gamble. Shareholders will back away." Evans nodded once. "We control the narrative now. We hit the press first. We make it clear Evans Bakersfield is on the rise, not the fall." He turned, locking eyes with the room. "This is the counterattack." No one spoke for a moment. The energy in the room shifted from fear to something else: momentum. Evans gave a small, dangerous smile. "Let's show them they picked the wrong fight." Alisa barely slept that night. By sunrise, she was already in the media center. Evans had hastily set up a small team of comms people, PR freelancers, and 2 trusted marketing directors buzzing around her, waiting for orders. She stood in front of the giant whiteboard they'd rolled in overnight, mapping out the assault. "This isn't defense," Alisa told them. "We don't respond to Grayson's story. We erase it." The plan was simple and brutal. Exclusive interviews. Evans would sit down with 3 major financial news outlets to talk about the company's rebirth and the strategic growth partnerships already locked in. Press releases. Aggressive, timed perfectly, highlighting the 4 new alliances, future profit projections, and major operational upgrades. Internal morale blast. She crafted a sleek, no-nonsense memo for employees, explaining the deals, the future, and making it clear we are not for sale. Social media wave. Every corporate channel flooded with new branding. Evans Bakersfield, rebuilding, reinventing, relentless. Alisa ran it like a general. She approved every post, edited every line, personally briefed Evans before each interview. No leaks, no mistakes. By the end of the first day, the media coverage flipped. Shareholders backed off Grayson's offer. The board, the new, cleaner board, reaffirmed their loyalty to Evans. Inside the company, the mood changed overnight. People started standing a little straighter, believing again. By the end of the week, Evans called an all-hands meeting in the main auditorium. Every employee crammed into the space, buzzing with a rare kind of energy. Hope. Evans took the stage, cool and steady as ever. He didn't waste time. "Leadership is earned," he said, voice carrying across the room. "And this past month, one person stepped up when it mattered most. One person didn't just save us, she led us." He turned, nodding to where Alisa stood off stage, stunned. Effective immediately, Alisa Brooks is being promoted to Chief Operating Officer. The room exploded. Cheers, clapping, whistles. Alisa felt her heart hammering in her chest, but she walked onto the stage without hesitation. Evans shook her hand, leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "You didn't just fix the company," he said. "You made it fight again." And for the first time since this war started, Alisa smiled. Because they weren't just surviving anymore, they were winning. 6 months later, Evans Bakersfield Industries didn't just survive, it evolved. The company that once teetered on the edge of collapse now stood taller, leaner, sharper. Profits were stabilizing, new partnerships were flourishing, and at the heart of it all was Alisa Brooks, the new COO, running the day-to-day like a force of nature. But Alisa knew fixing the books wasn't enough. Real change meant fixing the culture too. The first move she made was with the board. Under Evans's full support, she led a quiet but firm restructuring, recruiting new members who actually understood the modern world. Younger executives who came from tech startups and agile industries. People who thought in terms of solutions, not bureaucracy. Social entrepreneurs who didn't just care about profits but also about ethics, sustainability, and brand trust. Diversity advocates who understood that a future company didn't just talk about inclusion, it built it into its foundation. Alisa personally vetted every candidate. She held one-on-one interviews, asking questions that rattled a few old guard backers. How do you plan to address sustainability without greenwashing? What does real community engagement look like, beyond donations? How do you lead when the world calls you out instead of cheering you on? If they gave buzzwords, they were out. If they gave real answers, real plans, they earned a seat. The new board was younger, sharper, hungrier, and under Alisa's guidance, they moved fast. New policies rolled out on ethical supply chains and zero tolerance for internal discrimination. New community programs launched in the neighborhoods where Evans Bakersfield operated, hiring local, investing real money in real change. Sustainability initiatives that weren't just PR, actual measurable targets, published publicly. Inside the company, the old fear faded. It was replaced by pride. Ownership. At the year-end town hall, Evans stood beside Alisa on the stage again, but this time he didn't need to say much. The employees already knew. This wasn't just Evans Bakersfield Industries anymore. This was their company, rebuilt from the ground up, led by people who believed in it, fought for it, and finally made it matter. As the crowd cheered and the new board members stood to be introduced, Alisa caught Evans' eye. He just smiled, small and genuine. And for the first time, Alisa didn't feel like she was carrying the company on her back. She felt like she was lifting it higher. The end? Hope you enjoyed listening to Green Tea Tales.